Before my life shattered, it seemed like I was living the American dream. My business was thriving, I adored my daughters, and I believed in the strength of my marriage. Cassandra and I had been together for 14 years, and though we'd had our ups and downs, I thought we were unshakable. Then, her betrayal hit me like a freight train. It all began on what I thought was just another ordinary day. I noticed a suspicious text message on her phone and the guilty look on her face. That's all it took to flip my world upside down. When I confronted her, she lied at first, but eventually, she confessed. The truth cut deep. Since then, I felt like a character in a 1973 Johnny Taylor song, trapped between the ruin of alimony and child support. Cassandra hadn't worked in years, so alimony was inevitable. Supporting my daughters was non-negotiable, and if Cassandra wanted to play dirty, she could claim half my business. Leaving my attorney's office, I felt like the weight of the world was crushing me. Cassandra, however, wasn't remorseful. "It's been 8 months," she said, her tone devoid of shame. "He's not better, just different." She had the audacity to warn me, "If you go to a lawyer, I'll make your life hell." The woman standing before me wasn't the one I'd married. "I'll still give you most of my time and affection," she added smugly, "but I'm not giving up Tom. We'll work out a schedule." Stunned, I left the house and stayed away for 2 days. When I came back, it was only for my daughters. They clung to me, begging me not to leave again. That night, after they were asleep, Cassandra approached me with a beer in hand and a self-satisfied smirk. "Glad you've come to your senses," she said. "Everything stays the same, except I'll be out 1 night a week. Don't worry, I won't let the girls find out." But I had already rehearsed my response. "Who said I came to my senses?" I shot back. "Here's what's going to happen. I'm staying until Olivia turns 18. After that, I'm gone. Emma might come with me, but either way, I'm leaving." Her smirk faltered as I continued. "Starting now, I'm done with you. Even if you drop Tom, I won't share your bed again. I'll move into the spare room. Find a job, or have your boyfriend pay your bills because I'm cutting you off. The girls will have everything they need, but you won't see another dime." She paled, then her face twisted with fury. "You're disgusting," she hissed. "I still love you. We should share a bed." She dropped her sundress, standing there in thigh-highs and heels. I hated that she still looked good, even after 2 kids, but I couldn't stomach the sight of her. "If your boyfriend dumps you, Patterson and Maine would be a perfect fit," I said, referencing our town's seedy red light district. Her face flushed crimson. "Fine," she snapped. "When you come crawling back, begging for a taste, you'll have to deal with Tom first." Her voice turned venomous. "You'll have to clean up after him." She stormed into the bedroom and slammed the door. I followed, my temper boiling over. When I heard her lock the door, I kicked it open. She was on her phone. I snatched it from her hand before she could react. "Hello," I said to the man on the other end. "Got your number now. Soon I'll have your address. Don't worry, I think having my cheating wife is punishment enough. And if you think she won't cheat on you, you're in for a rude awakening." He hung up without a word. Cassandra tried to yell, but the girls appeared in the hallway, asking about the noise. "The door was stuck," I said calmly. "I'll fix it tomorrow. Go back to bed." Once they were gone, I turned to Cassandra. "I'm keeping your phone tonight and checking your accounts tomorrow." "Good luck," she sneered. "My accounts are locked up tight." She didn't know I'd installed a keystroke recorder on the computer months ago. By morning, I had everything I needed: emails, searches, and purchases. I even found lingerie photos and a video of her using a toy. Her lover? A permit supervisor for the county. They'd met when she went to get the permit for my workshop. The irony wasn't lost on me. I locked everything away and went to bed feeling surprisingly calm. Over breakfast, I dropped a bombshell on the girls. "Sorry, but I've got new responsibilities at work. Mom will be driving you to school now since she's home all day." They protested immediately. "Please, Mom," they pleaded. "Don't make us ride with creepy parents." Cassandra forced a tight smile and reluctantly agreed. Her afternoon trysts were officially disrupted. Before she could say a word, I cut her off. "Here's the difference between us. You think with the wrong head. Start using the one on your shoulders if you want a shot at staying in your daughters' lives." "Oh, and the house is wired for sound and video. Bring him here, and it'll be online in an hour. Have a great day." At lunch, I reviewed the surveillance footage. Cassandra fuming. searching for cameras she'd never find. The installer had made sure even I didn't know their exact locations. Later, I listened to her phone calls. "He's impossible," she complained to her lover. "He ruined our afternoons, cut my money, and canceled my cards. I've got $280 left and a $200 bill due. Let's give it a few days," he said nervously. "If we leave now, I'll be in trouble too." Try to calm him down. So much for love, I thought bitterly. How am I supposed to suggest that? Cassandra's lover sounded frustrated over the phone. "The second I bring it up, he'll know you've been here. Your undying love is starting to sound like crap," he muttered. "I do love you," Cassandra replied defensively, "but we need to be realistic. If we leave our spouses, everyone will know why, and we'll end up broke. This way, we stay in nice houses." "Fine. Let's meet at lunch then," he conceded. "Where?" "I can't pay for a motel, and I'm not screwing you at your office," she snapped. "Let's do it at your house and leave the evidence for him to see." "Bad idea," Cassandra said sharply. "He claims the house is wired for sound and video. If we meet here, it'll be online in an hour." And I believe him. "Then let's stop for now and let him cool down," he suggested. "You can still sleep with your husband. At least you won't be without." The call ended with tension, and Cassandra looked rattled. Reality was starting to sink in for her. Later that day, I caught her trying to access the computer, only to discover I had locked her out. "You pig!" she screamed, unleashing a string of profanities. After a while, I called her, keeping my tone mocking. "Hi, honey. Having a good day?" "Stop messing with the computer," she shrieked. "It's locked tighter than Fort Knox," I replied. "Oh, and your phone will be shut off by the end of the day. Don't worry, a new one will arrive tomorrow. Hope you like it." I hung up before she could respond. My friend had installed top-notch surveillance equipment while Cassandra was busy with her lover. The new phone I gave her had a safety feature that limited her calls to preset numbers. She actually smiled when I handed it over, but her mood changed quickly when she realized she couldn't call her boyfriend without the call resetting after 30 seconds. I called her again. "Hi, honey. Figured out the phone yet? It only works for essential numbers. Hard to contact your lover now, isn't it? Maybe use the free time to get a job. You'll need it. I'll take care of anything the kids need, but you're on your own now." I hung up again before she could react. At home, the tension was thick. Cassandra kept her anger in check around the girls, but exploded once they were asleep. She cornered me in the basement, screaming threats and insults until she wore herself out. When her fury subsided, she switched tactics, tears streaming down her face. "Please, honey, stop being so mean. I don't deserve this. I didn't plan for this to happen. He's just a fling. Sooner or later, we'll get tired of each other, and I'll come back to loving just you. It didn't hurt you until you found out, and it won't hurt you now. It's just a few hours a week. The rest of the time, I'm yours, totally. Come to bed with me tonight, and I'll show you how much I still love you." I laughed, genuinely amused. "You know, I looked up cheating excuses online," I said. "There's a book called The Cheater's Guide. It has tips on how to have an affair and do damage control if you get caught. You've hit all the classics. It just happened. It won't affect us. It's just a fling. It'll be over soon. And of course, the offer of hot sex to make me forget. Oh, and the best one? Threatened to destroy his world unless he plays along." Cassandra's face was a mix of anger and confusion as I continued. "Let's think this through. Say I go along with your plan. What's in it for me? I still pay all the bills, act like a husband, and pretend everything's fine. Meanwhile, I get to share you. Sounds like a raw deal for me. Not happening." Her face froze as I added, "Since you've declared an open marriage, I'll be looking too. There's this sales rep who flirts with me. She's a gym rat with an incredible body. Next time she's in town, I'll take her to lunch and explain our arrangement. She seems liberal enough, and honestly, waiting to use your body doesn't seem worth it anymore, especially knowing how well used it's been." The jab about her body hit its mark. Cassandra had softened over the years, choosing the mall over the gym. She sputtered, "Why would you need anyone else when I'm still here? I still love you. The thought of you with someone else makes me sick." I replied coldly, "I've been here for 16 years, but apparently that wasn't enough for you. Do you think I was happy finding out you cheated? There's a word for men who let their wives screw around while staying loyal. Just like there's a name for women who cheat on their husbands. The Bitch Cook Express has officially derailed. Think on that. I'm going to bed. At least one of us has to work tomorrow. As I walked away, Cassandra was still stammering. I knew I needed a solid plan before she found new ways to ruin my life. That's when I thought of Lucas, an old friend who was a genius with computers. He'd been designing games since he was 14 and was now worth over $60 million. Despite his awkwardness, Lucas had married a woman I introduced him to a few years ago. She was the daughter of one of my best clients and a recluse. She'd insisted her father bring her to one of my parties, claiming she had a feeling something important would happen. When she met Lucas, she took his hand and said, June 17th. Lucas turned to the room, flushed but determined. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to invite you to our wedding on June 17th at Emmanuel Lutheran Church on 2nd Street in Broadville. The rest, as they say, is history. I'm Nora Ellis, and we met right here at this party, Nora once said, recounting her story. What she left out was that their meeting was the start of everything. At the party, she told Lucas exactly what ring she wanted, and by the next day, he'd given her a credit card to pick it out. 8 years later, they had a happy marriage and a 7-year-old daughter, Sophie, whom my girls adored. It wasn't unusual to see a Lexus SUV in our driveway, the driver, Tessa, chatting with Cassandra. Tessa, a gorgeous ex-military black woman, had served 2 combat tours and held black belts in 3 disciplines. She worked for me, bringing brilliance and discipline, though she often complained about boredom. One day, Nora came by to visit and struck up a conversation with Tessa while waiting for me to finish a meeting. By the time I was done, I'd lost an employee. Tessa moved into a small apartment on Lucas and Nora's estate and found purpose when she saved Sophie from a crackhead's attempted kidnapping. She became Sophie's bodyguard nanny, a role she loved. Whenever Lucas and Nora visited, Cassandra frowned at my playful banter with Tessa. The girls loved it, giggling every time Tessa hugged me goodbye. My daughters even vacationed with them to exotic places, while Cassandra always found an excuse for us to stay home. The photos, particularly of Aunt Tessa in a string bikini, were a hit, though not with Cassandra. Our families were close, except for Cassandra, who seemed distant. Lucas, ever logical, asked me bluntly during one visit, "What exactly do you want, Ethan?" I sighed. I want to keep my daughters in my life and make Cassandra regret what she's done. When the reality hits her, it'll get ugly. But I can't end up broken alone. Lucas nodded thoughtfully. What about the house? It was a 4,400 square foot home in an older neighborhood. We'd bought it at a steal, 60% below market value, and spent years restoring it, though the basement, nearly 1,100 square feet, remained unfinished. Remodel it, Lucas suggested. Make it a nice apartment with a separate driveway and electrical panel. Move in there. If you divorce, you'll have your own space and full access to the kids. A judge would likely favor that setup. Why didn't I think of that? I muttered. Because I'm a regular guy, not a savant with a sky-high IQ. Tessa chimed in. Or you could kick her but or knock his teeth in. Better yet, send his balls up his throat. I can mess up their lives without it ever getting traced back to you. I laughed. Let's keep that as plan C, Tessa. I wouldn't mind Cassandra feeling some pain, but she's still the mother of my kids. For now, we stick to plan A. Tessa nodded reluctantly and went to check on the girls. Nora smirked as she leaned toward me. You know she has a crush on you, right? Be careful. Now that you're practically single, she's thinking all kinds of things. I was surprised. I'd always admired Tessa, but I hadn't realized she felt that way. It wasn't something I could dwell on, though. I had work to do. The house was in my name since I'd been the only one earning when we bought it. I consulted with contractors and architects until I had a plan I liked. On my lawyer's advice, I eased up on Cassandra, giving her a modest allowance for lunches and shopping. I also installed a GPS and anti-theft system in her Mercedes, with the ability to shut the car down remotely. It didn't take long for that feature to come into play. One day, Cassandra's lunch ran long. I checked the GPS and saw she was headed to her lover's house. I shut the car down. Seconds later, she called, panicked. Ethan, the car cut off, and it won't start. I'm stuck. Where are you? I asked, feigning concern. She hesitated. I'm, across town. What are you doing there? I went to drop something off at Beverly's, she replied hastily. We went shopping earlier, and I left a bag in her car. Beverly's at work, isn't she? I pressed. Yes, but she left the bag in the garage, she stammered. Try the car again, I said. I bet it starts now. It did, but 5 blocks later, I shut it off again. After 2 more shutdowns, Cassandra figured it out. When she returned home, she unleashed a tirade, which I calmly recorded. She even snapped at Olivia when she tried to soothe her, telling her to leave the room. The hurt on Olivia's face silenced Cassandra, but the damage was done. Things were tense between them after that. When Cassandra asked about the basement renovations, I told her I was fixing it up for the girls, so they'd have more space. She seemed relieved, assuming I was coming to terms with her lifestyle. Meanwhile, she used her allowance to buy a burner phone, which I promptly bugged. Her lover wasn't thrilled with their disrupted plans. Maybe we should call it off for now, he said. Your husband's not reacting how we hoped, and I'm afraid he'll do something drastic. He's a coward, Cassandra scoffed. He won't do anything to hurt the kids. Maybe not the kids, her lover replied, but we're fair game. He can be ruthless at work. If this gets out, I'd lose my job. Have you told your wife you're leaving her? Silence. I thought not, Cassandra snapped. Man up and tell her before my husband does. He'll hit you where it hurts most. I don't want to see you for a month, she added. We need to think, and I need to repair things with my husband. If we split, I want him in a forgiving mood. A whole month to finalize my plans. I wasted no time. I arranged a meeting with George, the county commission chairman, who'd known my father. We met at an upscale steakhouse out of town. After ensuring George had a good meal and a couple of drinks, I laid it out. I'm considering moving my business, I said. Hanover County is offering attractive tax incentives, and they have suitable buildings. George frowned. Losing 89 jobs, especially with my recent expansion requiring 30 more workers, wouldn't look good in an election year. Why would you move your business? George asked, visibly unsettled. The county has always had a good relationship with you, but with the economy as it is, we can't offer any concessions. I'm not after concessions, I replied. I need rezoning for a property I want to buy, but the issue will be permits. That might be tricky. Why? The rezoning notices are up, and no one's objected. It should be a straightforward process, George said, puzzled. Because your permits and zoning manager is sleeping with my wife, I said bluntly. And he knows I know. George slumped back in his chair, realizing the mess this could create. A scandal like this could unravel his entire department, especially with our local investigative reporter sniffing for stories. You're sure? George asked, trying to find a way out. I have video and audio, I said simply, including footage of him jacking off in his office. George grimaced. What do you want? His resignation would be nice, but for now, I just need some remodeling plans approved without him being involved. George nodded slowly. I can send him to a 3-day training seminar. Will that work? Perfect, I replied. You've got until after the elections to deal with him. After that, I'll go public. We parted ways, both knowing our relationship would never be the same. George dreaded any future meetings with me. Another relationship strained, thanks to Cassandra. The contractor started the basement remodel the next day, taking advantage of the zoning manager's absence. Cassandra barely noticed, likely too preoccupied. She did try to mend things, giving me a long, teary speech about how bored and unappreciated she'd felt, claiming her affair was a mistake she'd never repeat. Really? I said. And what happens when the girls grow up and you're bored again? Instead of an affair, you could have volunteered, joined a book club, or gotten a job. But no, you chose a sex buddy. How's that working out for you? Our relationship is already dying. It's only a matter of time before it's done. She fled the room in tears. For the next few weeks, Cassandra played the perfect wife and mother. We even took a weekend trip to Disney, though I made it clear I wasn't sharing a bed with her. She tried everything to seduce me, but I refused. One night, she climbed into my bed, and I physically pushed her out. Her frustration exploded into veiled threats about divorce. Taking the initiative, I served her with separation papers. I sat the girls down at the park and explained that their mom and I weren't getting along, and I'd be moving into the new basement apartment. They cried and begged me not to leave. I'm not going far, my babies, I reassured them. I could never live without you. I'll still be in the house, but I'll have my own space. Here are your keys. Don't let your mom take them. They smothered me with hugs and kisses, comforted by the promise that I wasn't really leaving. To cheer them up, I promised a shopping spree on Saturday to decorate their rooms. When we got back home, I sent the girls to check out their new basement room. Cassandra met me at the door, screaming so loudly that the neighbors called the cops. Following my lawyer's advice, I stayed outside and handed the officer my separation papers. "What's the argument about?" she asked. "It's about infidelity, hers, not mine," I said calmly. "I can provide evidence if necessary." The officer looked at Cassandra, who turned red. "So what?" Cassandra snapped. "That doesn't give him the right to abandon me and the kids." "Officer, can I show you something?" I led her to the basement, leaving Cassandra outside. Inside, we found the girls huddled on the bed, crying. I knelt down to comfort them. "Sure, it's okay now. Mom's just having a bad day," I said gently. The officer nodded and smiled at them. "Your dad's right," she said. "She's much calmer now. Let's go talk to her again." Outside, the officer turned to me. "It must suck to be you right now, but you're doing the right thing. Always put the kids first." When we returned to Cassandra, she seemed calmer, her voice breaking as she said, "I love you, and this is tearing me apart." The officer gave us both some parting advice. Put the children's welfare first. How you act now will shape how they see you in the future. It's just a separation, not a divorce. Speak to your lawyers for next steps. After the officer left, Cassandra hissed, "Living room. Now." She stomped inside, but I went back around the house, locking my gate behind me. The basement had 2 deadbolts and 3 safety latches. She'd need a battering ram to get in. The soundproofing ensured I wouldn't hear her screams. The girls stayed with me until bedtime. I reassured them that everything was fine before sending them to bed. Once they were settled, I called Cassandra. "The girls are coming through the front door," I warned. "How you act now will determine your future relationship with them. Think about that." Then I hung up. The girls didn't call for me, so it must have been quiet upstairs. Meanwhile, Cassandra got a lawyer, maxed out the credit card I'd left her, and arranged for an expedited hearing with a judge. "Mr. Hayes, why did you file separation papers?" the judge asked. "Because, Your Honor, my wife has been involved with another man for at least 9 months, I said firmly. "She told me she wouldn't end the affair and expected me to accept it. I didn't want to expose our daughters, ages 11 and 13, to that kind of lifestyle. If necessary, I have video and audio proof, all legally obtained." The judge glanced at Cassandra, who hung her head in silence, then turned back to me, almost smiling. "I understand you've moved out. How far are you from your daughters?" 26 steps, ma'am," I replied. "I remodeled our basement into a completely separate apartment. I only enter the main house by invitation, and my wife has the same restriction." The judge addressed Cassandra next. "Mrs. Hayes, you need to reflect on your recent choices. If this were a divorce, I'd recommend counseling. For now, this is a trial separation, and I see no legal reason to rescind it. After 90 days, Mr. Hayes can choose to renew, drop it, or file for divorce. I wish you both the best of luck." As we left the chambers, Cassandra turned to me in the parking lot. "You're really angry, aren't you?" she asked. "That's a stupid question," I said. "Yes, I'm angry, but more than that, I'm sad. I thought we'd grow old together, holding hands. Now I know that won't happen. My anger makes me want to say I wasted years with you, but we have the girls, so it wasn't a waste." I got in my car and drove off, leaving her sobbing in the rearview mirror. For weeks, we coexisted, me in the basement, her upstairs. The girls refused to let her into my apartment, and Cassandra was visibly upset but didn't push them. One evening, I knocked on her door. She seemed surprised to see me. "Follow me," I said. "The girls have been learning to cook and made dinner for us. Don't screw this up for them." Cassandra followed me outside, where the girls, wearing oversized aprons and chef hats, greeted her with hugs and led her to the picnic table. They'd prepared roast chicken, grilled vegetables, corn on the cob, and a tomato salad, and even made cheesecake for dessert. Cassandra praised their cooking and helped clear the dishes. Echo gave her a tour of the basement, including their room. Olivia often slept downstairs, while Echo stayed upstairs except on weekends. I let the girls use my man cave for gaming and hosted Friday night sleepovers, with boys leaving when their moms came to pick them up. As summer approached, I bought an above-ground pool, making the girls even more popular. Most parents knew about our living arrangements but didn't comment. Some single moms, however, dropped hints or outright flirted with me. Cassandra hated it. One evening, after a pool party, she confronted me. What were you thinking? That woman practically sat in your lap. Do you know how embarrassing that was for me? Not really, I replied casually. Was it as embarrassing as finding out your spouse was cheating? I told you I wasn't planning to stay celibate. Did you know she has 3 tattoos? One of them's pretty naughty. Good thing it's only visible when she's undressed. Cassandra looked stunned. I wasn't planning to give her ammunition for the divorce, but it felt good to see her squirm. Over the next 3 months, I monitored Cassandra's calls and activities. Going from 2 lovers to none was clearly hard on her, and her extensive toy collection saw plenty of use. She often cried herself to sleep. Though she still had her burner phone, I lifted the restrictions on her regular phone. She thought I was softening, unaware I no longer cared if she talked to her lover. The truth was, I had emotionally moved on, and our marriage was over. Meanwhile, elections came and went, and the county manager retired. The new appointee promised budget cuts, and Tim, Cassandra's lover, was quietly let go. When Tim appealed to the commissioners, they showed him a clip of his explicit behavior in his office. Tim, they said, the holder of this video has threatened to go public and sue the county. If we fire you now, we avoid embarrassment and legal payouts. If we don't, you'll face criminal charges, and your career prospects will be zero. Walk away. Tim had no choice and disappeared from the local scene. Cassandra called me, her voice filled with emotion. Did you have to do that? He has young children. How will he support them? He should have thought about that before sleeping with you, I replied. His wife has a good job now, and child support will help. His wife's a stay-at-home mom, Cassandra protested. Not anymore. She has a degree in accounting, and I hired her. Tim's wife, devastated by his betrayal, had come to me for help. What will I do now? She'd asked tearfully. How will I care for my kids? Her 3-year-old climbed onto my lap as I comforted her. You'll work for me, I said. Even if you don't, I'll help you. It's not my fault he betrayed you, but I feel responsible. This is a no-strings-attached offer. My kids know what it's like to live through this, and I don't want yours to suffer. Tim's infidelity hadn't just destroyed his marriage. It exposed a pattern of behavior that suggested this wasn't his first affair. I couldn't help her with evidence for divorce, but I gave her what support I could. She struggled to hold back sobs as she cradled her daughter. 3 days later, her voice was tight when she called. He wasn't going to tell me he got fired for an affair until I confronted him. He almost hit me, but I dared him to try, saying the bruises would land him in jail. He stormed out. I cleared out our account so he has no money. Is the job offer still open? She asked, her tone resolute. She started part-time the following week, working from home occasionally. My staff began noticing when Cassandra's picture disappeared from my desk, replaced with photos of the girls and me. They offered cautious condolences, except for Misty. Misty despised Cassandra after being accused of flirting with me at a company party years ago. Cassandra had been cruel, and I'd scolded her after Misty left in tears. That incident, I realized later, had happened just as Cassandra's affair with Tim began. Misty grinned when she stepped into my office one day. I heard the news. Fire me if you want, but I'm glad you're done with that witch. She was always nasty to the women here, Misty said boldly. We used to joke about who'd go after you first. Just so you know, I like romantic movies, French food, and long massages with scented oils. Misty was a confident redhead, 12 years younger than me, always dressing to turn heads without breaking office rules. She was in a serious relationship and had asked me to walk her down the aisle when she married. So I knew she wasn't serious. Still, I surprised her by playing along. Since we're alone, I might take you up on that, I quipped. I've always wondered if your carpet matches your drapes. Her hand flew to her mouth before she giggled. It would match, but I ripped the carpet up. I like smooth floors better. If you don't believe me, ask Jerry, she said with a wink before leaving, laughing all the way down the hall. Her lightheartedness lifted my mood for the rest of the day. Soon, other women in the office started joining in, and I knew Misty had spread the story when our 60-year-old receptionist asked how I felt about shag carpet. Meanwhile, Cassandra was floundering. With no husband, no lover, and no supportive friends, her loneliness deepened. I had ruined her best friend's marriage by revealing the affair, so none of her remaining friends dared discuss her situation or help her. A month later, Cassandra showed up at my door, begging to talk. I debated a cruel response, but decided to let her in. She glanced around nervously as I offered her a beer. "What is this?" she asked, inspecting the bottle. "Imported. If you don't like it, I have others," I replied evenly. "Have you turned into a lush?" she asked, her tone tinged with disdain. 3 minutes in, and she'd already irritated me. "No, I prefer quality over quantity. These are sipping beers. It takes me 2 weeks to finish a 12-pack. The girls like craft sodas and exotic fruit flavors. What about you? Been hitting the wine harder?" I asked, already knowing the answer. She flushed but admitted, "Yes. It helps with the lonely nights, but I'm cutting back." "Why be lonely? Your lover is semi-single. Go out and play," I said flatly, barely concealing my annoyance. "Wouldn't that bother you?" she asked, searching my face. "No more than when you did it while we were together," I replied calmly. "Now you're legally separated, and he's divorcing. There's less stigma." She looked down, ashamed. "We haven't been together in a while. The thrill is gone. The sex was exciting when it was a secret, but now it's empty." She sighed. Tim had moved to a small county half a state away, earning less than before. His child support, based on his old salary, was stretching his finances thin. "The thought of being with him again makes me sick," she admitted. "He wasn't worth what he cost me." "He didn't cost you anything, Cassandra," I said. "You threw him in my face and ruined things yourself." She began to sob, which only irritated me more. "Stop it, Cassandra. Crying won't fix this. Why are you here? What do you want?" She looked determined. "I want you back. I want you to hold me, nibble my ear, and tell me everything will be okay. I want us and the girls together, wrapped in quilts, eating popcorn, and laughing at movies until we all fall asleep. I want to feel loved again, not empty. I'm begging for a fresh start." She sighed, stood, and asked softly, "Will you hug me before I go?" I hesitated, but eventually stood and hugged her as she cried into my shoulder. When she finally pulled back, she thanked me and left. I sat on the couch, lost in thought, until Olivia came in asking about dinner. I pointed at the menus on the fridge. "Pick something." She called Emma, and after some debate, they chose Creole. "Call your mom, see if she wants to join us," I suggested. Emma returned with Cassandra, and they continued to debate the menu until I reminded them to order before it got too late. They returned with food and a movie, asking if we could eat in the man cave. After dinner, I watched the girls chatter, laughing as they sampled from every plate. Emma had ordered gator bites, which weren't half bad. We all sat on the leather couch in the man cave, the girls between us, like old times. They chose a romance, and I couldn't resist making fun of it until Emma jabbed me in the ribs. Both girls eventually fell asleep, snuggled against us. I noticed Cassandra quietly crying, her tears barely audible. We kissed the girls awake and sent them home with Cassandra. She kissed me goodnight before leaving. I sat there for a long time, thinking, could I ever trust her again? What if she hurt me once more? Sleep didn't come easily, and the next morning, the girls found me on the couch. I showered while they finished the movie. Cassandra was trying hard, cooking my favorite meals and staying positive, even when I declined some of her invitations. Her bond with the girls grew stronger, especially when school started, and she took them shopping. I gave Olivia one of my cards, and true to form, Cassandra used it for a few outfits. I didn't complain. She was learning to live within the budget I'd set. One evening, Cassandra surprised us. "I've been thinking about my life, Ethan," she said. "I think I'll take your advice and get a job or volunteer. If I do, will you watch the girls when needed?" I hugged her and praised her decision. She'd also started going to the gym, getting back into shape. I complimented her progress and even gave her extra money for workout gear. Slowly, things were improving. One night, after watching a risque movie and drinking too much wine, we ended up in bed together. Sex with Cassandra had always been good, but that night it was incredible, more passionate and uninhibited than I remembered. The next morning, I woke to her going down on me, something she used to hate. Surprised, I made an insecure comment. She blushed and admitted, "I still don't like it, Ethan. This is just my way of thanking you for last night and for getting along better." I felt foolish and apologized. She smiled, ran off to brush her teeth, and came back grinning. "Where do we go from here?" I asked her. "As far as you want," she said. "If either of us gets an urge, the other will satisfy it. I haven't been with anyone but you for months. Oddly enough, after I cheated, I became faithful. The thought of another man touching me makes me sick. I believed her, partly because I still monitored her movements. If she was cheating, she hid it well. 2 months passed. We shared a bed about once a week, and the girls, likely aware of the arrangement, alternated between staying upstairs and downstairs. Cassandra got a volunteer job at a charity, often taking the girls along to help with events. Occasionally, I joined her, which pleased her, though I couldn't go to every event and still run my business. When I attended, I enjoyed seeing her dressed up, but I cut back to one event in 3. She acted disappointed until I pointed out how little sleep she'd get if she joined me for my early mornings at work. Instead, we'd have breakfast the next day, with her showing pictures from the events. I trusted her, or at least I thought I did. The video cameras were still in place, but I hadn't checked them in weeks. We were slowly reconnecting, and I believed she truly regretted her past mistakes. Then came the call that changed everything. Nora invited the girls and me for the weekend. Cassandra had a 2-day charity event, so I wished her luck and invited her to join us if she could. She declined, saying she'd be too tired to drive. At Nora's mansion, the girls dove into the pool under Tess's watchful eye. I joined them, joking with Nora about needing a rifle now that my daughters were growing up. Olivia was blossoming into a beautiful young woman, and Emma was turning into an adorable doll. As we relaxed, Nora confided, "Tess is upset with you. During your troubles with Cassandra, she sent you signals, but you didn't respond. She doesn't understand why you didn't cut Cassandra loose." I didn't want to stoop to her level, I said. I had to think about the girls. Plus, I couldn't afford a scandal while seeking full custody. Nora pressed on. "How are things with Cassandra now?" "Better," I said. "She's exercising, being more conservative with money, and working with a charity. We've had occasional sleepovers, and I'm optimistic about the future." Lucas sighed, and Nora avoided my gaze. "We need to talk after the girls go to bed," she said, her tone serious. That night, after dinner, Lucas poured beers while Nora sipped her favorite wine. With the girls watching a movie under Tess's supervision, Nora finally spoke. "We donate a lot to charities," she began. "Cassandra has reached out for help a few times, and we've always sent a check. About a month ago, we went to a black-tie dinner, and Cassandra was there, coordinating the event. She was busy, so we didn't talk much. But later," Nora trailed off, handing me a photo. It was Cassandra, kissing a man, Edward Walker, a wealthy man notorious for seducing married women. "We have more pictures," Nora said, her voice pained. "All inappropriate. We told you because you're our friend. It's up to you what to do, but we didn't want you to make the same mistake again." The first betrayal had hurt, but this second one, after all her promises, hit harder. Our marriage was over. I thanked them for their honesty and excused myself. Though I expected to lie awake all night, I fell asleep immediately. By morning, my plan was clear. The divorce was back on. I'd call my lawyer on Monday. I wasn't sure when I'd tell Cassandra or the girls, but it wouldn't be long. It was time to move forward. I'd stay in the basement until Olivia graduated, and maybe Emma would come with me. If Cassandra had any sense, she'd agree to my terms for the girls' sake. But she wasn't known for being reasonable. For the rest of the weekend, I focused on my daughters. Nora had built a barn and gotten horses, so they spent hours riding and grooming them under Tess's guidance. It was a bittersweet weekend, one that cemented my resolve to end this chapter of my life for good. Despite my fear of big animals, I joined the girls for a ride around Nora's property. Nora later arranged a picnic by the pond, where Lucas met us with fishing rods. We spent hours fishing and chatting about business. I owed my company to Lucas and Nora, who had pushed me to start it. A casual comment from Nora about her dry skin had sparked the idea for my invention. The wall, a shower wall equipped with nozzles that washed, massaged, and applied lotion simultaneously. Women loved it, and word spread quickly. Lucas and Nora encouraged me to turn the prototype into a business, even loaning me $500,000 to get started. Their wealthy friends were my first clients, and soon my shower systems were in luxury hotels, celebrity homes, and even pro locker rooms. Over time, Lucas helped secure international patents and navigate lawsuits, ensuring the company thrived. After my divorce, he suggested selling the company to him to keep it out of Cassandra's reach. I stayed on as manager, securing a generous profit and a plan for the girl's future. When Cassandra's second affair came to light, I sent her divorce papers along with photos of her and her new lover. In the note, I made my stance clear. I was ready to forgive you, thinking you'd changed. But once a cheater, always a cheater. The deal I'm offering is good. Don't fight it. It will only hurt the girls. Good luck in your future relationships. Cassandra begged and pleaded, but I held firm. Her lawyer eventually advised her to accept my terms, warning that a fight could leave her with less. Still, she countersued for mental cruelty, accusing me of having affairs with Tessa and Tim's ex-wife, Hannah. Both women retaliated swiftly. Hannah threatened a slander lawsuit, while Tessa confronted Cassandra directly. Think with your head instead of your coochie. When this is over, I'm going after Ethan. He's a good man, and we'd make adorable chocolate babies. This is your only warning. Faced with opposition from all sides, Cassandra backed down. A few weeks later, Marie Walker, Cassandra's lover's wife, visited my office. She was an attractive woman, about 10 years older than me but looking my age. After introducing herself, she got straight to the point. I believe your wife knows my husband, she said. It clicked. Her husband was Cassandra's latest fling. I shook her hand again. I'm sorry for my wife's actions, I said. She shook her head. It's not your fault. Both of them have a history of cheating. I need a favor. You have pictures and testimony I could use in my divorce. Would you share them? Give me your lawyer's name, and I'll send them over, I replied. I don't have one, she admitted, her voice trembling. He emptied the accounts, leaving me just enough for the house and our son. I called my lawyer immediately. Mark, I've got a new client for you, Marie Walker. I'm paying. Here's her number. Marie looked shocked. Don't worry, I reassured her. He's good at what he does, and I can afford it. If there's anything else I can help with, just ask. Tears welled up in her eyes as she thanked me. I called Hannah, who quickly arrived to offer her support. I introduced them. Hannah, meet Marie. You two have something in common. My wife slept with both your husbands. When I returned 15 minutes later, they were smiling. Hannah smirked. I told Barb what a nice guy you are, and how I'm coming after you when the divorce is final. But for now, Barb needs a job. Marie had a degree in international business relations and spoke French, Italian, and German. Looks like you've just found your new international marketing director, Hannah said. Thank me with a bonus in my next check. Cassandra, of course, threw a fit when she found out. What is this? Some kind of revenge thing? She demanded. I hit my breaking point. Cassandra, shut up. If you don't, the offer comes off the table, and I'll make you fight for every penny. You destroyed these women's lives. This is on you. Don't speak to me. Contact my lawyer if you need something. The girls will tell me if they need anything. But Ethan, she began. I interrupted, my voice like ice. You can be sure of this. The divorce is going through. You can be sure I'll find someone else before the ink dries. The girls deserve a positive female role model in their lives. Go ruin more marriages, and send the women to me when you're done. Goodbye, Cassandra. My rage silenced her. She backed away, wide-eyed, and didn't say another word. I left without closing the door, leaving Cassandra in stunned silence. The girls hated the situation. Despite my efforts to shield them, they found out everything. They refused to see their mother for 3 weeks until I convinced them to spend a weekend with her. She's still your mother, I said. She didn't betray you. She loves you. If you don't want to stay, come back, but at least try, for the family. Emma, at 11, sighed heavily. We'll go, but you're wrong, Dad. She betrayed us too. She took away a normal family. It'll never be the same again. We do things with you, with her, but never together. It's all broken. She hugged me tightly. Love you, Dad, she said before walking away. When did kids get so smart? I thought grimly. Therapy might not be a bad idea. After 11 months and $600,000 in settlement negotiations, Cassandra finally gave in. She asked for an hour before signing the papers. I called her, irritated. What can you say to change anything? I asked. If you're sorry, I accept. If not, just sign the papers. No more drama. Emma was now 12 and a half, blossoming into a rare beauty. Olivia, almost 15, looked like a 20-year-old model. Our home still saw frequent pool parties and man cave hangouts. When boys showed up, their mothers often lingered, keeping a close watch. Cassandra never offered to come by. I was still paying all the bills and would continue to do so until the youngest went to college. I modified the petition. Instead of Cassandra keeping the house, it would be sold, and the profit split evenly. She'd still have enough to live comfortably if she was careful. The ink wasn't dry on my divorce papers when Hannah came after me. I'd love to, I told her gently, but you work for me. If it didn't work out, it could get awkward. I'll quit, Hannah retorted, her determination shining through. You love your job, and no one will pay you what I do, I countered, hoping to dissuade her. I could marry the bank, she teased. You could, I said, laughing, but it'd take time. If it ever happens, let me know. Well, I had to try, she admitted with a smirk. I even wore a string today just for you. They're so uncomfortable. I raised an eyebrow, torn between shock and laughter. Grinning mischievously, she reached under her skirt, shimmied, and handed me a scrap of black lace. Here, a memento of what you turned down. Think about me the rest of the day, knowing I'm commando under this skirt, she said, her eyes sparkling with mischief. She twirled at the door, her skirt billowing just enough to offer a glimpse of her bum as she left. Smiling, I put the string in my desk drawer. Marie wasn't as subtle. I'm not looking for a relationship, she said. I just need to be laid. Seriously laid. It's been almost a year, and I'm tired of buying batteries. Help a girl out. You're flying to France tomorrow, I reminded her. Keep control, Barb. Maybe you'll find a Frenchman and fall in love or lust. There's a Pierre or Jean-Claude out there waiting for you. She sighed. Good thing I talked to Hannah. I'm not wearing a string either. In fact, I'm not wearing anything under this dress. Give you any ideas? Lots, I replied. None of them good. Leave me alone. I'm still dealing with being unmarried. Marie eventually moved to Nice with a Frenchman and now leads our European division. Hannah met another accountant, and they're still together. I spent about 9 months casually dating, mostly confirming that everything still worked. Nothing serious, just physical pleasure. Lucas and Nora supported me, inviting me and the girls to visit often. Tessa, however, moved on, which disappointed me more than I cared to admit. 13 months after the divorce, Cassandra got engaged to a man she met through her volunteer work. He seemed decent, and the girls liked him. I met him a few times and found him unthreatening. I wondered if Cassandra was honest with him about her past, but it wasn't my business. Then the girls came home one evening, visibly upset. Josh is out of our lives, Emma said flatly. Do you know why? I asked. Emma sighed. Seriously, Dad? It's Mom. What do you think happened? I was comfortable being civil with Cassandra when we ran into each other, but I didn't encourage any interaction. I removed all the surveillance equipment. It wasn't my business anymore. Still, I was tempted to turn it back on, wondering if she acted with Josh the way she had with me. Thankfully, I resisted. 17 months after the divorce, I came home to find Tessa visiting the girls. Olivia, now 16, was thrilled about the Jeep I'd bought her. It was safer than most cars her peers wanted, so I agreed. Olivia and Emma were popular at school and frequently had friends over. I later realized Olivia's choice of vehicle was influenced by Tessa, who drove a similar one when she was younger. Emma bounced over, grinning. Dad, guess what? Tessa wants to take us camping. Sophie's coming too. Can we go? I chuckled. Emma was the girliest of the two, and the idea of her camping was amusing. Tessa grinned. You can come too. 9 girls, ages 10 to 16. I'll need backup. You'll have them organized like a boot camp. I doubt you'll need help, I teased. Come with us, Daddy. Emma pleaded. We'll need someone to carry stuff and cook. How could I say no? You don't expect us to do all the work, do you? Olivia teased, smirking. All right, make plans, I said. I've got plenty of vacation time to use. Bringing that white string bikini, Tessa? I added with a playful grin. Tessa blushed and shot back. Not this trip. It'll be PG. I don't want the girls watching you perv on me all weekend. That earned me a turn to blush. Fair enough. I'll do my best to behave, I replied, making the girls giggle as I ordered pizza and they browsed camping gear online. I could already tell this trip was going to cost me a fortune. Tessa visited often before the trip to check everyone's gear and teach the girls how to set up and break down tents. By the end of it, they could do it blindfolded. Sophie often joined, impressing everyone with her parents' smarts and her mother's stunning looks. I hadn't talked to Cassandra in months. She frequently had men over and always sent the girls to me on those nights. While I didn't think she was a great role model, the girls seemed level-headed despite her behavior. One day, Cassandra called and asked to talk about the girls, which immediately worried me. I met her at her door, and she got straight to the point. Stop poisoning my girls against me. I'm sick of hearing about Tessa. If you're with her, keep it away from my girls, she demanded sharply. I took a deep breath to calm myself. Then I laughed. This from a woman who's had multiple lovers recently? Do you think the girls believe you're just playing backgammon all night? You're a hypocrite, Charlie. By the way, I'm not with Tessa, but even if I were, it's none of your business. I've stayed out of your personal life, so stay out of mine. Also, you look terrible. Get back to the gym, do your hair, and take better care of yourself for the girls' sake. Anything else? Have a great day. I left her stunned and in tears. Just then, Tessa drove up, and on impulse, I grabbed her and kissed her hard. She was surprised at first but quickly melted into it, her body pressing against mine, her tongue sliding into my mouth. We broke apart to the sound of clapping from the girls and the loud slam of Cassandra's door. Miss Super in control, blushing for once, was a sight to behold. Why did you do that? Tessa asked breathlessly. Because I've always wanted to, I said, and it exceeded every fantasy. Plus, I wanted to shock someone. Also, I'd like to try it again to make sure it wasn't a fluke. Later that night, Tessa and I shared an air mattress with 2 sleeping bags zipped together. I sleep on the left side, she said, turning off the lantern. I heard her dress hit the floor and realized she was wearing nothing but tiny white bikini lingerie. You coming? She asked. I didn't hesitate, dropping my shorts and sliding into the sleeping bag beside her in just my boxers. She gave me a quick kiss, turned over, and pulled my arm around her waist. She fell asleep instantly, while it took me much longer to calm down. The next morning, I woke up still spooning her as the sound of giggles filled the air. Tessa sighed, arching her back into me. Keeping my hand in place, she reached down and grabbed my morning wood. If we were alone, I'd have ways to deflate that, she teased. But surrounded by young girls, you're on your own. Hurry up, though. I hear stomachs rumbling. We need to make breakfast. A few minutes later, Emma showed me the primitive bathroom just beyond the tree line. It was basic but functional, with plenty of water and sanitizing soap thanks to Tessa's planning. Though I was decent on a grill, Tessa took charge of breakfast, delegating tasks to the older girls. The aroma of frying sausage soon filled the air as I chopped peppers, onions, and ham for omelets. Tessa used a massive cast-iron pan to make the best buckwheat blueberry pancakes I'd ever tasted. After eating, she had everyone clean up and pack away utensils until the campsite looked untouched. Then she led the girls to the lake to fish. With plenty of small bream in the cove, everyone caught something, and we snapped endless photos. The girls announced that we had to visit Academy or Dick's Sporting Goods soon. After relaxing by the lake, we drove back to the marina, where I rented a large pontoon boat. After an hour of instruction, I returned to find everyone sunbathing. Watching my girls, I realized how fast they were growing up. Tessa, lying on her stomach in a string bikini, asked me to rub lotion on her back. Her skin was soft and warm under my hands. I'd love to, but we have an audience, I said, noticing the girls watching us. Sighing, Tessa tied her top and grinned mischievously. Your loss. I decided a dip in the lake was in order. Tessa smirked, and Olivia and her friends giggled as I dove into the water. Later, while cooking lunch on the grill, Tessa kissed me, and I left a hickey on her neck. As the girls teased us, humming the wedding march, Tessa grabbed my shorts and quipped, "Nice," before walking away. She turned back to warn me, "Don't run now that I know you want me." To reassure her, I scooped her up, kissed her, and swatted her bum, making her laugh. Inside, the girls kept teasing me. I told them I wasn't sure where things were headed, but they kept humming the wedding march all week. When the trip finally arrived, I double-checked everything on Tessa's list. She drove Sophie and 2 friends in her 4-wheel drive. Olivia drove her friends and Emma's buddies in hers, and I drove a company truck packed with gear. After 4 hours, we arrived at an isolated campsite, a 30-minute drive from the nearest bathhouse. Tessa took charge, setting up 4 tents while I organized food into bear-proof containers and locked the coolers in the vehicles for the night. She sprayed bear repellent around the site while I set up the charcoal grill. Lunch was cold cuts and sodas, with the girls giggling and eyeing the lake in their swimsuits. I decided to take them out on the pontoon boat, which was perfect for 9 girls and 2 adults. When we returned, everyone was sunbathing again. Watching my daughters grow and thrive, I felt a wave of pride and nostalgia. Tessa caught my eye and grinned. You know, I'm having a lot of fun bossing you around. Yeah, I teased. Don't let it go to your head. That night, as the girls laughed around the campfire, I realized how much my life had shifted, and for the better. Tessa brought games that required physical activity, and the girls ran, screamed, and laughed until they were utterly exhausted. After dinner, we took them to the bathhouses. I showered quickly, then waited while 10 girls went through their elaborate bedtime routines. By the time we returned to the campsite, they were nodding off, and we nearly had to carry a few of them to their tents. Sophie kissed me goodnight, calling me Uncle Ethan. Soon, the other girls followed suit, dubbing Tessa, Aunt Tessa. We expected them to stay up whispering and giggling, but within 30 minutes, the only sounds were soft snores drifting from the tents. Tessa and I took a quiet walk to the lake, enjoying the peaceful silence under the stars. I had brought a couple of bottles of wine, and we shared one, drinking from plastic cups. After half a cup, Tessa dozed off, leaning heavily against my shoulder. Too heavy to carry, I gently shook her, but she didn't stir. Leaning closer, I whispered in her ear, trying not to wake the girls. Unable to resist, I kissed her neck, letting my lips trail to her shoulder blades. She stirred, letting out a soft moan, then turned her head and kissed me slowly. Pulling back, she stroked my cheek and smiled. "You can wake me up like that anytime, honey," she murmured. "Now help me up. The girls will have us up at dawn." She held my hand as we walked back to the tent. I hesitated when I saw only one tent set up for us. "It's just for sleeping, Ethan," she said, tugging me inside. "I'm vocal when I get started, and I don't want to damage 9 young minds." Inside, the air mattress had 2 sleeping bags zipped together. She quickly changed into shorts and a tee, tossing her day clothes aside. I followed her lead, and we settled in. She gave me a quick kiss, spooned into me, and fell asleep almost instantly. The next morning, I woke to the sound of giggling. Tessa stirred, pressing her back into me, and reached down to grab my morning wood with a sly grin. "If we were alone, I'd have ways to deflate that," she teased. "But surrounded by young girls, you're on your own. Hurry up, I hear stomachs rumbling." After a quick stop at the primitive bathroom, a basic but functional setup with water and sanitizing soap, breakfast prep began. Though I was decent on a grill, Tessa took charge, delegating tasks to the older girls. The aroma of frying sausage filled the air while I chopped peppers, onions, and ham for omelets. Tessa's buckwheat blueberry pancakes were a hit, and the girls devoured them with impressive enthusiasm. After breakfast, Tessa organized everyone to clean up and pack away the gear until the campsite looked untouched. Then she led the girls to the lake to fish. With plenty of bream in the cove, everyone caught something, and we took endless photos. The girls announced that a trip to the sporting goods store was mandatory when we got home. Later, we spent the afternoon on a pontoon boat I had rented. The girls squealed in excitement when they realized the big boat was for them. Tessa, ever cautious, insisted everyone wear life vests. "We have a student driver," she said, grinning at me. "Best not to take any chances." Once they felt comfortable, the life jackets came off, revealing swimsuits underneath. The older girls caught the attention of passing boaters, but Tessa made sure they stayed safe and focused on fun. The boat's highlight was a sliding board that launched them into the water. Soon, kids were going down 2 at a time, screaming as they splashed into the lake. One little girl, Vicky, hung back because she couldn't swim. The others offered to stop using the slide, showing surprising maturity for their age. Tessa came to the rescue, fitting Vicky with a life vest and sliding into the water with her. By the time we reached a small beach, Vicky was paddling confidently in the shallow water, grinning ear to ear. As the sun set, we built a fire on the beach, roasting hot dogs and marshmallows while sipping sodas. Sitting on the boat's edge with Tessa, I leaned over and kissed her cheek. "What was that for?" she asked, her eyes sparkling. "For helping Vicky. You're going to be a great mom someday," I said sincerely. Tears filled her eyes, and she dove into the water to hide her reaction. When she came back, she sat quietly, leaning against me. "You didn't say anything wrong," she admitted softly. "It's just no one's ever said that to me before." I didn't know how to process it. The ride back to the dock was peaceful, with Tessa holding my arm the entire way. The girls groaned when we returned to the campsite, but their complaints vanished when we reminded them we had the boat for 3 more days. Back at camp, They insisted Tessa and I relax while they prepared a light dinner. We sat in camp chairs, sharing stories. Tessa told me about her new role as co-owner of a veteran-run security service. The erratic hours and travel were challenging, but she loved the work. I shared my decision to sell my company, surprising her. It was a favor for friends that turned into something bigger, I explained. I never really loved it, but I wanted to provide for my family. Tessa squeezed my hand. She opened up about her ex-husband, who had left her for a friend who was pregnant. I was stunned. She had never mentioned it before. The following days were a blur of laughter, boat rides, and late-night talks by the fire. By the last night, the girls were so exhausted they fell asleep immediately after dinner. As we cleaned up, Tessa leaned close and whispered, "Come to bed, and I'll let you finish that massage." That night, we shared a quiet, tender moment that left me feeling more content than I had in years. The next morning, the girls woke us up, grinning knowingly as Tessa blushed. We packed up the site, leaving it better than we found it, and headed home. Olivia drove Tessa's SUV, Emma took the wheel of mine, and Tessa rode with me. We held hands in silence until Tessa finally spoke. "I've thought about this a lot," she said. "You will love me, marry me, and give me more children. We'll spend our lives together. If you object, I'll leave and never come back. By the way, I love you. What do you think?" I grinned. "Let's get a ring tomorrow and start house hunting. Tessa Morgan, will you marry me?" She didn't answer right away. Instead, she texted someone and told me to pull over. Olivia's Jeep stopped ahead of us, and Tessa jumped out, running to my door. She gave me the most satisfying kiss of my life, as 9 girls cheered and danced around us. "Well done, troops," I said, grinning at Tessa as she blushed. "Oops, you weren't supposed to see that," she teased, hugging me again. I sighed as I shut down my computer. Today was my 60th birthday, my last day of work. I was officially retiring, ready to enjoy the life I'd built with my family. Emma had excelled in math and business, earning her MBA and eventually becoming the CEO of a global company. Olivia followed my path, earning an engineering degree in bridge building. She traveled the world, settled down with a life partner, and adopted 2 little girls, my only grandchildren so far. Emma, still focused on her career, seemed close to an engineer she'd met through Olivia. My musings were interrupted when Tessa entered with our twin daughters. They were graduating high school soon and had already chosen colleges, eager to live independently. "You were right," I told Tessa. "We make beautiful kids." Tessa had retired from fieldwork when we married, managing and eventually selling her share of her company. Even while pregnant, she ensured her business thrived. Today, she helped me pack my desk, pausing to smile at a wedding photo. Her in a gown with 9 bridesmaids in combat boots, holding a sign that read "Operation Successful." We were moving to our lake house, the same lake where we'd camped all those years ago. The house was perfect, with 2 massive pontoons, a speedboat, and endless room for laughter and memories. The kids from that trip often visited with their families, reminiscing about Operation Lake life. Privacy would be scarce, but I didn't mind. Cassandra, meanwhile, hadn't fared as well. She got the house in the settlement, but eventually realized her complaints fell on deaf ears. She remarried twice. Her first marriage ended in infidelity, and Hannah and Marie humorously offered her ex a job. Her second marriage was an open arrangement, with their basement converted into a playroom. She rarely spoke to us, still holding on to old grudges. Time hadn't been kind to her. "Dad, hurry up," one of the twins called from the hallway. "If we start now, we can still get a couple of hours on the lake." I smiled, grabbing the last box from my desk and heading out the door. As we walked together, I thought about how far I'd come, from heartbreak and betrayal to love and a family I adored. The best part of my life was just beginning.